Hello, today we're going to talk about the south node of the moon in your chart, most specifically the sign that it's in. The south node is huge in evolutionary astrology because it represents your karmic past, what it must have felt like to be you in the past life, what your life must have been like, so we can create sort of a parable that parallels your past life experience. But we really want to understand what it was you were trying to learn in the past life, and that will give us some insight into what you're trying to learn in this life. You know, I think incarnating on Earth is very much about learning, so we're in a school of sorts, and it doesn't matter what grade you're in, and we can't, through the chart, understand what grade you're in, but we can approximate the exam that you're taking for that grade level, so to speak. And our first clue to what that exam is the energy of the south node sign. Of course, the house that the south node is in and all the other players in your nodal structure. But the first step to understanding the entirety of your nodal structure is what sign is it in. And it teaches us a lot about your personality in you. So I'm going to go ahead and shift over to the slides here. These are slides that were a part of my, I did a full class on this actually, where we talk about how to create the past life story and even talk about the karmic medicine, which is more the north node of the moon. But just to look at this key here, we can first establish what the south node even looks like. If you look at this sample chart of Jim Carrey, his south node, or anybody's south node for that matter, is in this symbol here. You can see it off to the left-hand side. The south node and then the north node, they look opposite from each other. So they look like these horseshoe shapes. And the south node is always going to have the curvature at the bottom, okay? And in the case of Jim Carrey, his south node is right here in the third house of the chart. And it's in this sign that looks like two wavy lines, which is Aquarius. You can see the signs up here, so you can figure that out. Now, how you bring up your chart to even find this out, there's many websites online where you can just type in free birth chart, plug in your birth data, and off you go. So you can discover that way. There's also fancy software that you can buy, but first things first, find a way to bring up your chart and then look for this horseshoe shape with the curve at the bottom, establish what sign it's in. And then this will teach us a lot about your character in the past life. Think about it this way. You have a sun sign in the current life. Whatever, let's say you're a Leo. Okay, so your sun sign in this life is Leo, and you might have a south node that's in Pisces. So one way, this is an oversimplification, but one easy way to think about this is perhaps you had your sun sign in Pisces in the past life. You were very Piscean. Probably not exactly the case, but it's useful to think of it in that way because the sun represents identity. So your identity in the past life was very Piscean in this example. Okay, so once you've established what your south node sign is, now we're going to change slides to figure out how you likely manifested that, for good and for bad. Because as I always talk about, within this realm of duality, we have the light side of the force, high consciousness, enlightenment, love, compassion, and then the dark side of the force, or shadow side, or where we can take these energies and really stumble with them. That would be the darker potentials. And then that's where the magic of our free will really comes into play, where we can make decisions working with a certain energetic template, okay? And the template is defined by the south node sign, and within that template is a range of potentials. And of course, we get things right, we get things wrong, always. Okay, so let me change slides. So we will go through all the signs here quickly and honor them again as good potentials and not so good potentials. And as you can see in our first example here, Aries, it says at the beginning, motivated positively by, and then motivated negatively by. Now, one thing I want to talk about really quickly here is some people have in what is, in my opinion, a misconception about their south node. Sometimes people will get the impression that south node bad, north node good. So reject, get away from, deny the expression of the south node within us, and then embrace the north node. Now there's some truth in that, okay? But there's also a big falsehood. I disagree with that understanding of the South Node, it's not that we want to deny it completely. You know, if you were, you know, whatever your South Node sign is, in this case, Aries, your South Node's in Aries. Again, you manifested beautiful qualities of Aries that you're using to this very day because it's kind of baked in your soul energy over the course of multiple lifetimes. And some of that's good stuff you've carried through, because really the South Node is just karmic habit energies, but you also have some of the negative stuff. Now, when looking at the South Node, we do want to focus more on the negative side of it, not to be negative, but just because that's more useful information. You know, obviously you're reincarnated again. You're still trying to get this stuff exactly right. So we honor, you know, let's say your South Node's in Aries. Okay, you have this qualities of courage, a hunger for adventure, a drive towards excellence, you know, all these beautiful Aries qualities. You have, I'm sure, a few of these within you if you have your South Node in Aries. Okay, so we can honor the good, but let's focus on the bad. You know, it can manifest as anger issues or destructiveness, because Aries is the classic warrior archetype. It can be cruelty. It can be having a sharp tongue. It can be domination, a lifetime of fear, aggression, victimhood. Now, which one of these, or sometimes there's multiples, did you fall into exactly? Well, this is where you want to understand the entirety of your nodal structure, because it will really point to the bullseye here. So we have to be somewhat cast a wide net at first. But you know, this is good for contemplation. Okay, negative side Aries, trip me up in the past life. Which of these aspects do I feel is still a part of me, and how can I grow beyond that? And I don't have it listed here, but another classic South Node and Aries stumbling block is, because it's such an independent, you know, warrior-like fiery sign, can be an ego-centered attachment to independence. All the dark sides of all these signs will, if they're manifested, basically derives from egoism and pride, okay? So an egotistical attachment to defiance, to independence, that could be a part of this too, even though it's not listed there. Okay, now Taurus. I'm going to focus more on the negative here. You know, of course, contemplate the positive too, but just for efficiency's sake. Taurus motivated negatively by or stumbling blocks could be dogmatism, because there's a stubbornness associated with Taurus, a rigidity because it's a fixed sign, talking about it negatively. There can be a laziness or a lassitude associated with this sign. The stubbornness basically manifests as a fear of change and a stubborn refusal to adapt. I see that a lot in the South Node Taurus. So kind of a fixity energy, an attachment to stability, like a fear-based attachment to stability, you know, stubbornly holding on to things. Materialism, it is the classic sign of money after all. Again, you'd want to look to the rest of the symbols to support that within the nodal structure. And if you want to learn how to read your nodal structure, you can check out my class, my full class. So, yeah, denial, okay. It can also, there's also a beautiful quality of just goodness associated with Taurus energy, but that goodness could have had a stultifying effect upon you if you have this South Node sign. What about Gemini? One of the most zippiest of all the signs. It's an air sign. You know, shadow side of Gemini is, you know, spinning in circles, chasing your own tail, spinning too many plates at once, kind of a scattering of energy, because it's a deeply curious sign, which you'll see here, motivated positively by curiosity, of course, to extremes, especially if it's manifested in a more fearful, stressful way, can disperse, can go in too many directions. So it can manifest as a loss of perspective, too much of a hunger for stimulation. It can be mere intellectualism. You'd want to look to the rest of the symbols to support that. Youthful folly. It's the most youthful of all the signs, no matter what the age is. Okay, so getting distracted. So, okay, this is South Node in Gemini. And then Cancer. It can be fear, because it's one of the most sensitive, emotionally sensitive sign. It's known as the crab archetype, and One of the shadow sides of Cancer is to hide inside the shell of the crab and live too shy of a life because they feel so intensely. So if you're looking at a nodal structure that has a lot of stressful situations and people and stuff, it can manifest as that hiding. It can also manifest as like the fear manifesting as like a hypochondriac or something like that. Okay, this can be a challenge or a stumbling block. Too much of a love of security, stifling the evolution. It's also the sign of family. It's linked to the 4th house of the chart because it's the 4th sign, which is the house of home and family. It can be, again, hiding kind of energy, a fear of pain. And it can also manifest as the dark side of the mother archetype, which always takes care of other people instead of themselves. I've seen that a lot too. Okay, so let's go to the next 4 signs. Leo, negatively, it is a very prideful sign at times. It can be linked to arrogance, self-importance, wanting to go out on stage, really craving attention. This is Leo negatively, okay? It can also represent the temptations of power and status because it is the king of the beast. So it's linked to, I see this a lot, privilege, the upper crust of society, egoflation surrounding that, needing applause, needing approval. Okay, so the challenges of being the king, that sort of thing. And Virgo, the virgin archetype, this motivation to be pure, to be perfect, which of course manifests positively as humility, as you see here, but negatively, it can be, oh, I'm inadequate, I'm not good enough. It can be guilt, shame, self-doubt, worry, concern, being overly judgmental about yourself, and if projected into the external reality, overly judgmental of others as a nitpicker, so this is the shadow side of Virgo. Now, Libra too, just like Taurus, does have laziness associated with it. There's some overlap between Libra and Taurus because they're both ruled by the same planet of Venus. But Libra is a more relational sign, I'd say, than Taurus. It's a little bit more weighted in that direction. So it's the archetypal judge and the platform balance to keep balance in one's life. And that heavily is emphasized towards the relationships, balance in relationships. And to keep balance sometimes, because it's the judge archetype and it can recognize there's so many implications for multiple decisions, can get trapped into a stasis of fear of making the wrong choice. So indecision's part of it, or because of the relationship themes, maybe too much compromise, too much bending over for others, becoming a little bit of a doormat. It can be linked to codependency, defined by others. It's also a sign susceptible to vanity, even addiction and compulsion. And there's psychological reasons for that, which I don't have time to get into. But, I would say Libra, of all the signs, is most susceptible to buried anger because of the passive aggressiveness associated with this sign. So it can be a resentful sign, or even a sign that, resentment leads to contempt. So I've seen that a lot too. Again, this is negative. There's beautiful sides about all the signs. So Scorpio, because Scorpio is a charged emotional sign, we look to the more charged emotions. It's a very moody sign negatively. So it's linked to despair, bitterness, unresolved psychological issues, suspicion, the fascination with the dark side of life. And, when I see a South Node in Scorpio, I immediately think, or at least I run this up the flagpole in my mind, oh, this person probably had a pretty rough past life in the category of the nightmarish, or at least a bit of a psychodrama. How much so? How nightmarish? Well, you look to the rest of the symbols that are involved in the nodal structure to kind of push you in terms of how extreme it was. Sagittarius, here's the last 4 signs. Motivated negatively by dogmatic certainty, rigid opinion, impulsiveness because it's a fire sign, folly and just falling on your face, making a mistake. I'm a Sag, so, hey, I know that one pretty well. Fundamentalism of any sort because it is linked to the preacher archetype, immaturity, reducing people to simply symbols and archetypes. That's a danger I fall into as an astrologer because I'm always thinking about archetypes. It's important to have compassion, to manifest the more positive expression, to manifest, high ideals and principles and helping other people to do that. Okay, so that's Sag. And Capricorn negatively is time-serving, pointless endurance, slave consciousness, bleakness, meaningless austerity, negativity, the need to control. Another major thing here with South Node in Capricorn, it can be a shutdown heart too. That can be a challenge. Capricorn's a very wise sign. And for people who have South Node in Capricorn, they're carrying that wisdom through, but oftentimes that wisdom was, again, hard fought, hard won through growth-inducing experiences, which were very hard on the heart, which hardened the heart. That can be a challenge with people with Capricorn South Node, especially for babies in the early 80s, because their Capricorn South Node was square Saturn and Pluto. And Aquarius, just like Capricorn, because they both share a planet that rules at Saturn, this is a sign that's also susceptible to a shutdown heart, but for different reasons. It's linked to dissociative disorders, linked to trauma, fear of judgment, disapproval, because it's the classic outsider or exile archetype. It's a deeply ingenious sign, which you'll probably see up here in the positive. Yeah, there it is, genius. It's a very smart sign. What's implicit in genius is to just kind of think outside the box, to view things differently than the mainstream. But usually the challenge within that, being the genius, is Aquarian South Node past lives is like suffering from a lot of rejection, betrayal, and abandonment, which if you don't know what to do with that, and it really leads to the shutdown heart, can lead us to coldness, aloofness, self-protective distance, and dissociation. And lastly, we have Pisces here, motivated negatively by escapism, self-numbing behavior, taking refuge in vagueness, spinelessness, dreaminess, weakness. It's this escape artist archetype, and it doesn't have to be addiction. If you have this in the past life, it can also be martyr energy, hanging on the cross unnecessarily. It can be dedication to a spiritual life without really taking action in the world, So again, as I said at the very beginning, we don't only want to focus on the negative, but by recognizing both the positive qualities that you have within you, honoring those, continuing to feed those, because they're a gift, a skill set, a superpower that you have. So, of course, we want to keep using those gifts. But then looking, it's like, okay, of the shadow sides of the South Node sign that I have, how am I manifesting that in the current life? And how can I slowly, day by day, begin to de-energize some of those more egoic expressions within me that's been brewing in the cauldrons of experience for many, many lives, and then also seek to the opposite, the North Node sign, which we're not going to get into in this video, to help, and then feed energy to that to also help with the imbalance, because the North Node sign is going to be opposite. It's going to be much different and completely foreign from where you've come karmically based on your South Node sign. So look to de-energize the shadow side stinkers, if you will, the egoic expression of the South Node sign, and then embrace the positive expression of the North Node sign. So I hope you found this helpful. And if you don't know what your South Node sign is, it'll be fun to go investigate. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them down in the comment section below this video. And I'll talk to you next time. Take care.